Okay, we're live.
Okay. Well, happy tax day, everybody. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. So, Mary, you want to take us through a roll call attendance to see who's here?
Yes, President Lindner.
Here.
Vice President Getz.
Here.
Commissioner Castellini.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner North. Commissioner North, could you chime in again?
Here.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All right, we're all here. Very good. We have had a staff member pass away fairly recently, so we're going to start the meeting with Jenny. Are you going to say a few words and then we'll have a moment of silence?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
So Bart Sherrill joined our team in 2015 as a part-time employee, and he worked at the waterfront. He quickly became full-time in 2019 as a laborer and worked in the East region. Bart was a hardworking individual with a kind and generous spirit who embraced life and shared his love for his family and friends. It saddens me to announce that Bart has recently passed away, and our prayers and thoughts are with his family and friends during this tough time. He will be greatly missed in this world as well as in the park system. Please join me in a moment of silence for Bart Sherrill, a beloved member of the parks team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jenny. Our thoughts and prayers to his family. Okay, as usual, we start off with the acknowledgement of the public comments, of which there were numerous, and you'll be able to see these sometime later when it gets posted, along with the minutes. Then we are off to approval of the minutes from previous meeting, March 18th. Are there any changes or additions to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion to approve them as submitted.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right, Mary, let's see who all is in favor of this.
President Lindner.
Yes.
Vice President Getz.
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini.
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next item of business is the election of board officers. And I would just like to say, anybody else that wants to, step in here is happy to take my role. So I don't have any angles to ride this thing all the way to the end. So somebody want to, mix it up and change the, the structure, that is 100% okay with me.
Brad, I would like to say I appreciate the role that you've played as president and the guidance that you've given us. I would be happy to move into the president role out of vice president. If elected, I'll serve. Great.
You'll have no argument for me, Jim, and I have been playing at this for sure. Totally. So yeah, we want to have a vote to elect Jim president, and then who would like to be the number 2? Anybody?
I'd like to propose Linda.
I love that idea. I don't know if Linda loves the idea. I don't want to volunteer Linda, but I think she'd be a great person for that role.
And I would love to have Linda as a partner in this leadership.
Well, this, I have to say, this comes as quite a surprise. And Jim is famous for this.
I know he is, isn't he?
You know, it's a spur of the moment, and I'm inclined to say yes, with hesitation and reservations, but I accept.
All right. Very good. So let's, can we have a vote on this slate, Mary? Or shall we do a little roll call action here?
Sure. President Lindner,
Enthusiastically in favor of this.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. So, excellent. Now I don't have to do anything, right?
I think, Brad, you are prepared for this meeting. I would recommend that you lead us through this one, and I'll take copious notes of your style, and
Yeah.
we'll be happy to chair the next meeting.
Well, I don't know if you really want to emulate, my style, but help yourself. Okay, so very good. That's great. I'm looking forward to the new leadership and where it takes us. So,
Mr. President,
yes, Miss Vice President.
I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you for your leadership over the last period of time.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know it's a labor of love, and it's a lot of work. So I appreciate your service.
I thank you for that, and I will give Jim all the credit. You know, he was he was a lot of the action behind the scenes. I'm just the front man. Jim does all the work, and I get all the glory. So now it's Jim's turn to get glory and do all the hard work too, along with you. So, well, I thank you.
Linda, you are absolutely right. No, Brad and I have worked very closely together, and Brad has been, during a time of transition that we've gone through, we couldn't have had a better person leading us as president of this board. So again, I thank you as well, board, and Brad, and looking forward to your continued service. He's not going anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere. Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. And it is a labor of love, and I've learned a lot, and we'll continue to learn a lot. So thank you. Next up, we have Captain Swingley and the police report.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I have a short agenda that I'm going to give overall stats regarding the city parks, as in terms of calls for service, types of arrest, and some updates on some prior topics we discussed, and establish some follow-up. So just to give some perspective, for the first quarter of this year, there were over 60,000 calls for service for police officers to respond across the entire city for all reasons. Regarding city parks, there were 3,539 calls for service to all city parks for last quarter. Now, this is a 14% decrease in calls for service as compared to the first quarter of 2020. So the top 5 parks that we're seeing officers respond to all show decreases except Eden Park in terms of calls for service. For example, the Over the Rhine Recreation Center had 144 calls for service for the first quarter of this year. This is down 22% from 2020. Mount Airy Forest which had 128 calls for service this past quarter, is down to 138 from last year, which is a 7% decrease. Now, Eden Park, I mentioned that there's an increase in calls for service. It's had 112 calls for service this past quarter. This is up from 2020, which had 98 calls for service, or a 14% decrease this past quarter over last year. Now, the biggest decrease that I've seen is the Price Hill Recreation Center, which had 68 calls for service. This is down from 2020, which had 115 calls for service. This is a 40% decrease over last year. And one of the reasons for this is our pivot team, our place-based investigations of violent offender territories, is working. They have a grant in the Price Hill area, a community-based crime reduction grant. So I think this is having some benefit to the parks in the area. And finally, the Bicentennial Commons at Sawyer Point had a 6% decrease over last year. Now, the top calls for service for 2021 start out with just 911 calls. We had 703 911 calls, and other calls. Next one was like some hazards, accidents, investigations, and parking violations. So the biggest decrease was calls for service in relation to investigations in our city parks. But the biggest increase, a 44% increase, is noise complaints for this past quarter over 2020. The number of arrests in all city parks was 518 for the first quarter of 2021. And when we talk about city parks and the stats, it's not only within the park, but it's immediately adjacent to the park. Like if you're on the street and you can see into the park, well, we count that because it affects the city parks. The top types of offenses that we see in 2021 are in terms of theft, 244, criminal damaging, 111, and it goes down significantly from there, like assaults, domestic violence, and felonious assaults. So that's the overall stats. I want to give you a couple updates on what we talked before and some follow-up I've been involved in. On March 22nd, I hosted a Zoom meeting with Assistant Police Chief Colonel John, Director of Department of Transportation, John Brazina, District Commanders, and our Public Information Office. The topic of the meeting was regarding groups of reckless motorcycles and ATV operators cruising through our city. Now, as you know, some of these drivers often visit Eden Park and Smale Park. So the plan was put together to target these ATVs that are automatically illegal to be operating on our city streets. And we involved our Public Information Office to initiate a public service announcement to stop this reckless operation of these motorbikes. So as far as Smale Park, on Sunday, we're starting to see an increase with the warmer weather. On March 28th, we had to have standby cars from all the districts come down to Smale Riverfront Park to address the growing number of motorcycles and vehicles cruising in the area, teens fighting. I believe there was a gunshot heard from within the area. It's found as far as Mount Storm Park, local residents have reported violations related to loud noise, littering, speeding, and fireworks. District 5 Commander, Captain Craig Gregory, has since established extra patrols in Mount Storm Park. And personally, at Patrol Bureau meetings, I've asked the district commanders to increase patrols in our city parks. And next Wednesday, there's a Zoom meeting with Deputy Director Jenny Mobley to discuss individual parks across the city within the responsibility of each of the district commanders. Director Mobley, would you like to comment on our positive working partnership that we established?
Yes, thank you, Swingley, Captain Swingley. We certainly are having a meeting on next Wednesday. This effort is to recognize how we can collaborate with the police and also get their feedback on maybe some suggestions that they have that we can do as parks staff and efforts to try to deter some of this activity. We certainly have in the past worked with individual districts for discussions for different parks, but this is an opportunity for all the districts to come together and provide feedback to us, as well as us trying to solve some of these issues and concerns.
And that's all I have.
Thank you so much for all that.
Thank you, Captain and Jenny. Any questions for the captain?
Mr. President,
Yes, Linda.
I have a couple of questions. First, may we have a written copy of your report to review?
Yes, I can copy.
Thank you, because I was trying to follow and wasn't able to get all of that. But the thing that I thought I heard was a reduction in calls for service versus same quarter last year.
No,
Did I get that right?
no.
Yes, I believe there's a reduction in calls for service in all city parks from last year. 14.
Yeah, that was a bit surprising for me, given last month's report where we had an increase, and the major reason was COVID last year and the reduction in participation in parks. So we got a reduction versus last year that was down. So that's a move in the right direction, despite the fact that we've got some spots where there have been increases.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other question? I have a question for the captain. ATVs. So do these guys like throw them on a trailer and then get close to their locations and then pull them off the trailer, or are they just coming out of their home and driving from home to downtown?
I think there's a combination of that.
It is, okay.
Coming across the bridges from Kentucky,
Aha.
joy riding, and then heading back into District 5. I've seen them going up into District 5 and of course District 4. So we're looking into that, trying to follow them to where they stage, and then talking to them and just impounding some of the ATVs, and then put them up on flatbed tow trucks. This is a warning that you drive recklessly in the city, that we're going to impound your vehicle.
Yeah, that's a good deterrent. Taking their toys away is get their attention, I believe. Okay. No other questions for Captain Swingley? All right. We'll give you back the rest of your day, Captain. Thank you very much for the report.
Okay, thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, on to the new business section. First up is the Dinor Park Survey results discussion, and Rocky, I believe, is going to take us through that. This is regarding the proposed dog park in Dinor.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you. Hopefully we'll get to do this in person soon again. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yes, it would.
So just to kind of bring us up to speed, this came up in our January regular park board meeting, where the board asked staff to follow up and do some additional community engagement around the proposal at a dog park at Dinor. Throughout the process, there's a lot of stakeholders that were involved, had feelings about this. We tried our best to be as transparent as possible and inclusive as possible to get as many thoughts and ideas as we could. Those were just kind of our guiding principles as we went forward. So given the pandemic environment, obviously, that sort of limited a bit what we could do. But the primary means we solicited this engagement was through an electronic survey, though there are some other opportunities for folks as well. So the survey was open from February 12th through March 31st. That was about a 6-week time period. We shared this widely on Clifton Next Door, the Cincinnati Parks website. We emailed it to a group of the area stakeholders that we often are in contact with, representing all sorts of different groups in the community, like the Advisory Council, Preserve Burnett Woods, all the local community councils, all were made aware of the survey. And then we also asked them to share it with their respective groups as well. We posted it on Clifton Next Door. I mentioned that already. And then we placed physical signs at the site because we wanted to make sure that people that lived in the area saw it and had the ability to respond. In addition to this, we made it in the same messages, we made it known that people could email the park board, email us through our cincy.parks address about this and provide any additional feedback that they'd like to offer. And there was also a meeting held on site where our staff met with some of the residents. They asked for a meeting to go over some of the particulars and look at the site, had a lot of questions. So we had that as well. These efforts produced a very strong response. We got a substantial amount of feedback through this. The survey, for example, produced 850 responses. That covered 25 different zip codes. And the vast majority of these responses were from the 45220 zip code, which covers the Clifton area. Within the survey itself, it generated over 1,300 individual comments to the varying questions, and the sort of open-ended questions on the back of the numeric questions. We asked about usage, interest in the park, what they thought the benefit was, and also what concerns might be. A total of 21 emails were also received during this time period. And we made sure that all of these responses, the survey feedback, was made available very quickly after the survey closed on April 1st. To you all, of course, it was given, it was posted on our website, and it was also sent to the group of stakeholders, because as you can imagine, a lot of people were interested to know what the results would be. And again, we wanted to be as inclusive and transparent as possible in terms of giving people the opportunity to participate. In terms of sort of a quick summary, like I'm sure you've seen through the feedback that you've gotten and in conversations about this, there were strong feelings on both sides of this, both for and against constructing a dog park at Dinor. The overall sort of split ended up being 55% for, either for or strongly for, and 45% against or strongly against the idea. The other trend that the data showed was that those living closest to the park were most likely to be in opposition. And as you moved out further, you were more likely to support the addition of a dog park in the area. And then finally, based on this, there are some groups that we work with that have met and had discussions about the topic based on, once the feedback was concluded. And so in your packet, you've received resolutions from the Clifton Town Meeting, from the Burnett Woods Park Advisory Council, and also the Mount Storm, Dinor, and Bodie Park Advisory Councils, who have all met and chimed in on their thoughts about this as well. So that sort of covers our approach, covers, in broad terms, what we saw back. I mean, of course, there's always opportunities for improvement, and we'll be looking to do that going forward, absolutely. But with that, I'll stop there. Then I think Kara was going to take it from here.
Thank you so much, Rocky. Reflecting back on this, I mean, we really are at a great place to launch forward. Collectively, the feedbacks, the comments, the entirety of the engagement really provided us with some value in terms of a better understanding of where the community stands. And where we have found the community to stand is collectively, the data supports that additional engagement should be entered into to identify and further vet potential sites. And so staff is looking to continue to work with the community, specifically through the community councils and the CPACs within the surrounding area, as a next step to complete and finalize a list of potential locations for a dog park in the area. And this would be a combination of staff looking at current spaces within the city parks, staff looking at potential other city-owned locations that may be viable, and then launching the creativity of the collective voice to see if there are other locations to consider, all to be vetted by our team for technicalities on whether or not these would be ideal locations for dog parks. But once we come up with an agreeable list from the community, then that list would serve as a launch point for the next round of engagement. So we do have a lot of confidence that working with the respective community groups, again, the councils and the CPACs, which in sum total represent the voice of the community, that we can come up with a short list of potential sites. And so with that, in consideration of all the data that we've received, staff respectfully request that the board allow the park staff to work with the community councils and the CPACs to identify potential sites, to create a short list of sites. Then we can gather additional community feedback about those sites and bring to you at a time in the future a report of those findings for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Rocky, very good. Any questions for the group here?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I thank you so far for the work done. This is just a tremendous amount of community input, and I've read most of it. You know, I'm concerned about where we stand on this because we have got public sentiment that is, I would say, strongly in favor of the dog park at Dinor. That's a big difference, 55 to 45. But we've got a lot of community opposition to it that we are responding to. And I agree. I think that your approach here, Kara, is the right one, which is first we need to identify a location that meets the parameters of what makes a great dog park. I think that's a great starting point. However, here we've got letters from Burnett Woods, from Mount Storm, and from representatives from Dinor that say we don't want a dog park in our park. So I'm just concerned about where that's going to take us as we continue to solicit feedback and input from the community. I don't know if the community has the capability to coalesce around a location that everybody gets on board with. So we're going to be split in community opinion on a dog park if we proceed with one in Clifton. That's one side of it. The other side is, so say we find a location that works and the staff and the park board agree that it's suitable. I think we really need to understand what kind of concept we would support here. Are we looking at a Westwood style dog park? Are we looking at a Doris Day style dog park? I think that the sentiment on the dog park changes significantly with the answer to that question. And I don't know the answer to that question. I know that the funding associated with each of those dog parks is probably dramatically different. And that's really the third question. Where's the funding coming from for this dog park? This entire survey generally said no one in the community was willing to make any contributions to it. So are we talking about potentially fundraising via the foundation? Is this a commission budget? I just want to make sure we're not spending lots of time pursuing a dog park that we don't have a conceptual plan to proceed on or a budget associated with completing it.
All very good points, Molly, and I find it hard to believe that people in Clifton can't coalesce around a common idea. One thing they do have is strong opinions, that's for sure. No, I think yeah, who's going to pay for it? You know, I mean, we've got limited funds. We've got a lot of needs out there. And so where does this shake out in the overall scheme of things as it relates to, you know, our obligations as it relates to the entire park system?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I agree completely with what Molly said, and I agree with you as well. I think as part of the engagement process, I think we do need to test with the community as well ideas for if a dog park was built, what could be the source of some of these funds. Yeah, I mean, one of the options is out of park board funds. We'd like to have community participation. So if we can hear from the community where their ideas are on raising money for it, that would be good to hear as well. I totally agree with Molly. When I read through the opinions and the comments made in this poll, which I don't know that we've ever got this many responses to a survey that we put out, but it seemed clear to me that one overriding thing is the appropriateness and look of a dog park. And I think clearly what Clifton sounded like they were looking for is more the Westwood Town Center type of dog park versus the Doris Day Dog Park, which brings with it, as Molly said, different considerations for cost. So I think as we move forward, I know for me as a commissioner, I like the concept of a dog park in Clifton. I know that I personally would be more supportive of a Westwood style, which is what I believe the presentation was to us and the discussions early on with that. And I think further community engagement would be good. I would, though, like to see a timetable because we need to be, there's been a lot of concern raised in the neighborhood. This has been going on now for well over a year. So I think we need to come up with a strong timeline, a very quick timeline, so to speak, to be able to do this and bring it back to the board at that time.
I'll throw out a suggestion potentially for that timeline and seek your feedback on it. Utilize the next 30 days to work with our community partners to identify short list, begin the engagement of vetting that list and seeking additional community input, and then returning with a staff recommendation on if and where a dog park should be placed. Hopefully at that point, we'll have additional feedback on and staff recommendations for funding sources. And so I would see that 60 days from today, we could have that all wrapped up. So at our June meeting, the only reason I would hesitate for May is just that is a series of steps. And I'm not sure that we could successfully progress through that in 30 days. But I would certainly feel comfortable with a timeline and a deadline of June to kind of wrap this up and place it in front of you for final consideration.
And if I may, I would just add on to that real quick, Kara, that in addition to the conversation about locations, once we determine options, viable options, I think that's great feedback in terms of other potential funding sources, as well as style. You know, we could incorporate some questions about that as well to make sure that sort of verify what we're thinking in terms of the Westwood style, and then really put it out there in terms of other funding sources. The question in this survey was just general. Would you help support funding it? This could be more specific. So I think all those areas could be covered in the second round of engagement.
Okay, thank you, Rocky. Any other comments regarding the dog park?
Mr. President?
Yes, Linda.
A couple of things. One is in terms of the questions to be answered over the next 60 days so that we have the information we need to make a decision on moving forward with this, or how or if to move forward on this. one thing is in the data we already have, we talked about the 55-45 split in terms of being in favor of the park. And for all intents and purposes, that's a pretty good number. Just about in any survey, people would conclude, oh yes, this is a go. The however for me is, if you look at breakouts in that number, the people who are most directly impacted by that location overwhelmingly said no, as did the major stakeholder organizations in the community. So as we are moving forward, I want to be clear that one, there's consensus, or consensus, yeah, I guess is the right word, on we want a dog park in Clifton. So if we're all on board with that, there's no opposition to that. We want that. And then the next question is, how and where are we going to make that happen? And what are the questions that need to be answered as we make that decision? So where is it? What is the design of it? How do the people most directly impacted feel about it? How are we going to pay for it? When is it going to come online? So those are just some of the things that I would be wanting to make sure I'm clear about at the end of this 60-day period, so that we have the information we need to make an informed decision.
All good points, Linda. Yes, thank you. All right, anybody else? Okay, so more to come on the dog park.
Yes, and just an additional thank you to everyone who did take the time to participate. As you stated earlier, this is an incredible engagement that we had, and we are looking forward to continuing the discussion with the community. Thank you for your support.
Okay, next up on the agenda is the MEMI revised management agreement. And Jenny is going to walk us through that.
Yeah, so what you have before you today is the final MEMI contractual agreement. This is a result of many discussions and negotiations with all parties. I want to thank Vice President, or now President Getz, for assisting with this process and dedicating so much time and feedback to help us get to this point. So what you have in front of us is, or in front of you, I'm sorry, a mutual agreement with all parties involved. And we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Any questions for Jenny regarding the contract?
I'd just like to add that Caitlin Geiger is the lawyer from the city who's been working diligently on this. I think she's available to take questions as well.
Yeah, and let me just say, Caitlin has spent so much time on this, and we have come to a very good document and a great agreement, I believe. And a lot of that's because of Caitlin's time and energy in working with not only MEMI, but with their attorneys and the city as well. So thank you so much, Caitlin. This wouldn't be where it is without your help on this. So thank you.
Thank you
One
all for
question.
your kind words.
Okay. Caitlin and Jim, could you tell me or tell us, are there any concerns that you have about this agreement? Or do you see ways that the park board will have to continue to focus or tend to this agreement?
You know,
Sure.
I think I'll go first, then Caitlin, you can jump in as well. From my perspective, Molly, this is a new venture. So as I look at it, we made some assumptions. We've made some assumptions as far as costs on an annual basis to maintain it. We've made some assumptions regarding how the park will be put back into conditions after each one of these concerts. But I think just like any other new venture, I think it is a wait and see. I think that there will be some things we need to make sure. Craig and his team will have to do a lot of specific, some new accounts being set up so that we can track things. The way it's set up, it really does require look back on actual expenditures and then actual results from not only MEMI's production of events, but ours as well. So as I look at it, there are those unknowns as something new, and we have a new partner. I would say, though, that I am very encouraged. It's been a long time in negotiations, and we have had many sticking points, as both Steve and Jenny and Caitlin know. But I have been very, very pleased with the relationship that we've already started building with MEMI. And I think they have also agreed to some things that they've agreed to pay for our maintenance and have agreed to numbers that we've thrown out there. So I feel like we've started this on a great relationship basis with MEMI, so that we are both in the same boat as far as wanting this to succeed. The way Caitlin structured it, we will both benefit when this is a positive experience in these venues. So I think given that, I think the key will be watching the numbers and then just seeing how it plays out.
Thank you, Jen.
Any other questions for Jim or Caitlin?
I just want to say hallelujah.
Progress, moving forward. So does this require a vote
Yes, it does.
to approve? Okay, so if there's no longer any other questions about it, then thanks to Jim and Caitlin for their hard work in getting us to this sweet spot here. Mary, why don't you see if we're all in agreement on going forward with this?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the document as
Oh, thank
presented
you,
to
Jim.
us.
We have a
Second.
second then. All right.
President Lindner,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes,
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Now we're moving on to Lot 28 Design Services. Steve and his cat are going to present that for us.
It might just be me today, but thank you and good morning. As you know, Lot 23 is well underway. In fact, we are probably 1 month away from Lot 23 being opened, the first phase, which is most of that project. Fundraising is certainly well underway to pay for phase 2 of Lot 23. What we'd like to move forward on now is the last remaining piece of the Smale Riverfront Park extension north of Mering Way. And that is at the corner of Elm and Mering, directly across from Elm Street from Paul Brown Stadium. And we're asking you today to approve hiring a landscape architecture firm to do that work. What you're seeing here is a representation that Sasaki did of the idea for a change really from the original master plan. The original master plan at this corner had an extension of the podium of Lot 23. So basically, this site would be covered by a flat platform. There'd be space under it for park storage and equipment, as well as an extension of the parking garage. As we looked at this corner, and in fact talked to our neighbors, the Bengals, we thought it would be a good idea to break down the scale of this corner. Mering Way, as it goes toward the west, actually drops in elevation. So the original scheme would have had a 14 or 15 foot high wall at the corner of Elm Street that you see in the foreground here and Mering Way. This new concept And it was something that Michael McInturf developed and Sasaki developed a little further. It's still just a schematic, but it illustrates the idea of retaining a small podium at the top. You see in the back of this drawing, the icon Brady Music Center. There'd be a small podium for picnicking, for possibly for events and programs, but most of the site then would slope down or terrace down and essentially be a garden kind of setting. You see a zigzag ramp here, would be totally accessible. I think the next image, Mary, you see some concepts. Oh, it's going to be after this. So this is looking at it in plan. Let's go back one more slide, sorry. Yes, so in plan, and you see that little sketch at the corner. So their stairs are being built now, in fact, are in place that get you up to lot 23. You see the Brady Music Center just to the top of the drawing. The area I mentioned that will be available for picnicking, for events and programs, and then this terraced garden. And then the next image gives you a feeling for, yeah, the kind of the way we would green this up. Instead of being mostly hardscape, the corner would be mostly gardens. And the next image, and this just indicates that we still have enough podium room at the top so that we can move our operations that is so far away now to the east of the park to have room for some of the mowers and the equipment and materials to be stored under that podium. So we went through the RFP process. The city already has contracts, contingency contracts with landscape architects. So we did a request for proposals to both of those firms. The selection committee then went through that and is recommending today to you retaining the firm of MKSK to design lot 28. And by design, I mean really to take these sketches all the way through design development to construction documents. You'll recall that the foundation has, and we've already applied for, is committed to $500,000 for design of lot 23, second phase, and lot 28. We believe the design cost for lot 23 will be around $400,000, which means there'd be approximately $100,000 left for lot 28. So we're asking today is for you to approve retaining this design firm. And by the way, they're the firm that is designing Tom Jones Commons. They also designed Westwood Town Hall Park for us. And asking, taking from Fund 329 up to the full $202,000 of this design, if necessary, of this design scope, to pay for the design work. I believe the foundation is committed to raising funds, not just to complete phase 2 of lot 23, but also to construct this site, lot 28. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Questions for Steve?
Okay, I have a question, Steve.
Sure.
In this company that you're asking us to approve to do the designing, will they consider the maintenance of lot 28 in their design? I think flowers are nice and with the original concept that you showed us, but there's huge maintenance on that. And I wonder if, I don't know, I just question, let's be practical. Can we ask them to please be practical?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me add a couple of things. One is certainly the design will have the same level of finish, the same character established long ago when we started Smale Riverfront Park. So we've got a good basis for design. Second, at the table with us is certainly operations. We always have operations in mind, what is sustainable and what is maintainable, even with irrigation built in. So as much as we want that site to be green, we also know that it needs to be maintainable. And that's absolutely something we look at every time we design anything.
I have a question, Steve. Knowing that this proposal came in last year, was this proposal developed before or after the Sasaki work that we just saw in the slides, where they helped take Michael McInturf's initial designs and softened it and came up with those designs? Because I just want to, I'm questioning how much new design work has to be done if we've all sort of coalesced behind at least the theory of what that looks like.
Yeah, this was after, Jim, so they were fully aware that we had changed the concept from the original master plan. But again, it's only some paper drawings at this point, so it's still a long way to go to develop that.
And the only other question I had was 400,000 additional to do lot 23 second phase seems like a lot, when all of lot 28, you're looking at a $200,000. Why is your estimate, number one, why is your estimate so high for 23, and when will you have a firm bid on that?
Well, what we want to do next certainly is to get a proposal, so we do have a firm bid that was based on a percentage of construction of the remaining work to be done. There is still some design work to be done to figure out exactly how to put the pergolas into place, the stone cladding. Probably the biggest thing that's yet to be designed is the east garden area overlook. That was conceived of as it looked like a series of platforms, but there's really a lot more work to do. And what we did in phase one is just conceive of it as flat green space with trees. And those trees will be going in actually within the next few weeks. We thought we would be living with that for a number of years. I think the foundation is in addition to the state grant and potential stimulus money, I think we're really looking at moving phase two forward pretty quickly. So we will, when we do that, we'll have a much firmer idea on design costs. And of course, once that is designed, we'll have a much better idea on construction estimates. So we have pretty good estimates from a year ago from Messer.
So we're ready to go out for a request for proposal for 23?
We're working with the foundation, then we'll be working with the city on that. And we're looking at the potential for a direct award.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to add that it would behoove the commissioners to go down to this site and have a tour of it. It is a big place. And when you see the drawings, they look itty bitty, but when you get to the actual site, it's a very big place. And we really need to see it in person.
And let me suggest that just brings to mind, as I said, it's actually 1 month from today, we think that lot 23 will be open. And I'd be happy to set up a walking tour. The artificial turf should be going down starting potentially even this week. So you could get a real good sense ahead of time, a sneak peek of what lot 23 is going to look like. And at that time, we can look at lot 28.
That would be great.
That would be great if you could pull that together.
Yeah.
I will do that, and we'll get hard hats for everybody.
So question, Mr. President?
Yes.
Steve, when you talk about just ballpark timing, how do these two dovetail? So if we're potentially moving the phase of 23 forward, and if we get approval to do the design work, how does that all fit together in terms of timing of completion of both those lots?
Yep, that's a good question. What we're looking at now is if we can start the design work, construction drawings for phase two, let's say within the next 2 months, that we could be going out to bid late fall. We could actually hope to start construction possibly this time next year. So that just about a year after phase one opened, that we do phase two. The one tricky part of that is to be able to do the phase 2 work without interrupting the concert season. So in fact, it might be, we'd have to work out that timing, either to work around the schedule of the use of 23 or to hold off so that whereas the concert season winds down, we're going into next fall to do that. Lot 28 is a little bit bigger question because we don't have the funding sources for that yet. We'd have to look at the success of private fundraising, what public dollars are available, and potentially what other potential partners or stakeholders might be willing to put into this. And there's been some indication of some interest, but we would have to pursue that.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, any sense of the range of budget for lot 28?
Yes, the last estimates we looked at was just over $4 million. One thing to add to that is that the county also has investment in lot 28. So we'd have to find out how much the supporting structure that the county's responsible for, public party costs for lot 28. You may remember that when we were designing and then constructing lot 23, that part of the structure for lot 28, we had to make some assumptions, and piles were actually put into the ground, assuming what lot 28 would be like. So we'd have to go back and look at that, confer with the county, and get some new estimates for the structure to support what's above. It's a little bit like of a chicken and egg situation, that the contractor is moving forward to put the foundation in to be able to build lot 23 and to do 28 while they were mobilized, while they were on site. And the difficulty was we didn't know at that point what was going to go on top of the structure. So if anything, we might have overperformed on the superstructure to hold up what would go on above it. Again, initially it was all going to be a series of piles and pile caps and columns to support a podium. And now maybe 2/3 of that site is going to be dirt, it's going to be earth fill on site, on grade. So that really changed the nature of it. So there's a lot of design work to do to move that forward. But again, the short form answer, the best estimate we have from a year ago is about $4.2 million. And that's just the park cost.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so can we have a motion to approve the, what is it, up to 200,000 out of Fund 329 to support the design documents?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Mary.
President Lindner,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Steve, you're still up and you're going to talk to us about the Smale River's Edge project.
I am, and there's a photograph attached to the report that kind of tells the story. We have, and we know we've had for some time, erosion that's occurring. It's pretty significant at this point, west of the Roebling Bridge on the western section of Smale Riverfront Park. We in fact got a state grant a number of years ago, $500,000 grant, to address this. And we saw that just really as a sort of a down payment that we hope to partner with the Corps of Engineers in the future. And this would be part of the match to figure out finally how to halt that erosion and stabilize the riverbank. We've moved forward at this point and put out an RFP, and we're asking you today to approve who the selection committee recommended, and that is KZF, who's worked on Smale Riverfront Park, done a lot of work on the river, and has worked with U.S. Corps of Engineers. And this will give us This isn't to provide full construction documents. We just need enough new, good information on a schematic design for how to stabilize the bank, how the park will actually meet the river edge, and to give us a cost estimate. And this information is critical as we continue to pursue a new project with the Corps of Engineers, not a new project, but to continue working with the Corps to end up in further federal appropriations to in fact then build whatever this river edge is going to be. So again, we're asking you to approve retaining KZF design to do this work.
Okay, thank you. Any questions regarding this project?
The cost of retaining KZF?
Yeah, it's $99,400. And again, it's coming out of a $500,000 state grant that can only be used for this purpose.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
two comments. Number one, I appreciate Kara and Steve's approach to this. This is a case, I believe, where they're being proactive to help sell this project to the Corps and to the Appropriations Committee. They're being proactive in doing this study to move this along, to be able to have something concrete to try to work towards getting this included in the appropriations bills at the federal government to help unlock this money that's been approved by the Corps. So again, thank you, Kara and Steve. That's very proactive, and I appreciate that. Steve, I do see that in the scope of services, not included in the scope is renderings of proposed improvements. How are you going to bring this back to us I mean, can we ask them to please put some renderings together so we can see what they're talking about?
Well, there will be a site plan. Renderings tend to be fancy drawings, and we could talk about that. Actually, we could look at funding renderings. But what we really wanted to get at here is a cross section of what that edge would look like, and plan, and based on those schematics, a range of costs.
Yeah,
because the pretty drawings and the designs then come afterwards. We just wanted something, as you said, to be able to go back to our congressional delegation and say, here's how much we think it's going to cost.
Yeah, just like us commissioners, we like to see things in pictures, and I think it would go a long way, I think, with the state delegations and stuff where you can actually see a picture of what we're talking about. But I'll leave that to you guys. But this is a great step forward, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Steve on this subject? Okay, so can we have a motion to approve going forward and spending the $99,400, of which we've already got $500,000 to spend on pursuing our erosion mitigation on the Ohio River?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right, Mary, let's see who's in favor.
President Lindner,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Next up is contracts and agreements for approval. We've got a bunch of them in here. Any questions on any of them? Open it up.
Well, not to belabor this, but so a question on administrative building renovations. And again, it's just for my long-term understanding. We approved this as a board doing this project back in May of last year. And when we approved that, part of the discussion that I recall even Commissioner Castellini strongly recommended that we get this work done while people are still working off-site and out of the building. help me understand why it's now a year later that we're just getting a contract in place for that work to be done.
Steve,
Yeah, I believe there that it was put out to bid. The bids were rejected. So it was just a lot of rework to put it out a second time to get to this point.
Why were the bids rejected?
I don't recall at this point. I'll have to let you know that.
Was it the compliance of not having the right combination of folks?
I don't recall that.
So Steve, you'll let us know what the backstory is on that.
Yeah, we can do that. Cindy may be able to join the meeting after she gets her shot a little later this morning. So I might be able to answer that later in the board meeting.
Okay. Yeah, if it's a typical board meeting, we should be here till about 3 o'clock, right?
Hopefully not.
I'll just say, Commissioner Getz, it's a fair question. It's a conversation that we have been having ongoing. To Steve's comments, unfortunately, the person who can speak most fluently on it is not on the call at the moment. And we can certainly relay that information to you. But just as Steve said, it has been a long back and forth process, and we are, regret that we are at this moment where we will be heading back into the building about the time that construction will be started. I too recall that conversation. Steve and I have had that conversation fairly regularly. And again, we will get you the full understanding of what's taken place over the past 12 months.
Yeah, maybe just a brief timeline, just bullet pointed,
Thank
just
you.
so we can all understand. Because it seems to come up and we just need to understand the process.
Yeah, and Jim, we have put together chronology because we're certainly as concerned as you are on why some of these things have taken so long. And not just the fact that bids are rejected, but why they're rejected at City Hall. So again, I just don't have the chronology in front of me.
Thank you. One of the things, if somebody could walk through the new agreements, the green space agreements, there's quite a few here. I know one like with the UC maintenance, that's one that's been ongoing for a number of years. Can you just walk through and tell us on each one of these, is this a new agreement or if it's a renewal?
Absolutely. So the UC landscape agreement and the agreement with 3CDC's Downtown Cincinnati LLC DCI are existing. I'm sorry, let me take that back. So the UC agreement and then the parking lots for 3CD landscape maintenance agreement are existing contracts that we've kind of had in place for years. So the new ones would be the OTR district management, Liberty Street landscape agreement, that one's new. The TransDev landscape maintenance agreement will be new, and the DCI landscape maintenance agreement will be new.
And Crystal, as you're looking at these, tell us the process you went through. I know that we had a discussion not too long ago where we declined bidding on 3CDC's the flower pot program in downtown because we said that we can't bid on that because we don't have enough people to do it, and we'd have to buy another truck, et cetera. So we didn't even bid on that. So walk us through why are we now able to do this? And is this going to lead to needing new staff, buying a new truck, which leads into then how'd you come up with the amount of money that we're charging?
So for the flower pot program downtown, they were effectively expanding it. So almost doubling the amount of flower pots that we would have to maintain. And that would require a new truck for watering. So our flower pot program is a little different than landscape maintenance in that, we have the staff in place to handle in-ground landscape maintenance installation and maintenance throughout the season. But if we were to double the number of flower pots that we were doing downtown, that would require us purchasing an additional truck for watering just to hold the tank. Staffing wasn't necessarily the issue. It was more the fleet issue that we would run into. If you're not aware, it takes at least a year to get a truck approved and delivered to you from our fleet services. So we didn't foresee that being a possibility to take on this season, given that it would take us at least a year just to secure a vehicle to water all of those pots. So we stepped back from that agreement for at least 2021. They had a similar bid as what it would cost us to do it. So they were able to easily transition into having another company take on installation and maintenance of those flower pots. So for each one of these new maintenance areas, our team has been planning and gearing up for these. The conversation for the TransDev streetcar stop started in winter of 2019. We are fully staffed now in 3CDC with a new florist for our downtown area. So taking on the TransDev stops and Liberty is something that we've been planning for. We have staff in place to take care of it. We already have the plant material secured as far as ensuring that the nurseries have the material in pots and ready to come once we have the agreement signed. So we are absolutely ready to take on these particular landscape maintenance agreements as we've been planning for them for at least a year or so now. So the purpose of putting these maintenance agreements into an official contract, in the past, these would all go year to year. So every year we would have to have a new signatory process between UC and 3CDC to get these agreements passed. So my plan was to make these at least 5-year agreements, 4 to 5 year agreements, so that we're not having to go through that administrative task every single year. All parties are on board with that as well. We have a standard built into contracts in place will streamline the program overall. So how each one of them came about, I'm happy to do so.
No, that's not necessary.
Okay.
I have a question on the existing ones that are renewals, if you will. And I understand about the timeline and the efficiency of multi-years versus every year. What about cost adjustments from whatever the time period was before until the time period now that we're undertaking? Are you making adjustments in cost, or are they maintaining the same cost across those years?
So each contract we're building a 2% increase for each year. So that would cover the cost of living expectations for at least our staff and materials. So we currently have landscape contracts in place through the city that would at least secure the amount that it will cost for plant material itself. And so we built in the 2% to cover the increased cost for staff over that period of time. And each one of them are a 1-year agreement with an option to renew. So if we find that the cost to maintain these areas exceeds what we currently have contracted, then we'll go through this process again to adjust that cost.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Well, I know me personally, the green space maintenance program is, I think, one of our best from the standpoint that it really shows off the city parks and the city green space. So I'm really pleased that we're able to step up and continue to do that as part of park board services to the city. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you.
One additional question. There's one green space maintenance. Is it at the 4th Street exit downtown? I don't have it here in front of me, but I was wondering if that was a new one.
Yeah, so that's the DCI. That would be an additional project that we would be taking on, just kind of cleaning it up. Okay. And this is something that we'll be looking at over the course of the next few months here as we get our season up and running and have time to step back away from watering and installation. It's just to look at all these gateways throughout the city that green space had at one point taken care of and through budget cuts had to step away from. So we're going through a detailed analysis of our budget. We've been working closely with Craig to ensure that our line items are reflective of the funding that green space is bringing in revenue, which will allow us to free up funds in another line item to look at some of those ODOT right-of-ways coming in and out of the city.
Yeah.
So we'll be going through those iterations over the next few months here.
Great. And I too, I think this is a great program. Someone said to me when I came onto the board, I was asking a question about which of these we maintain and not. And the simple answer is the ones that look really nice are the ones we take care of. So I think that's a real plus. I mean, they look great.
Absolutely. It's an honor to run this program, and just knowing that we're representing at least 26 business districts throughout the city through the Flower Pot program, and constantly looking at ways to beautify our greenways into the city, our gateways into the city.
Yeah.
That has a Cincinnati Park Board, post on it with a label. It's a real point of pride, I think,
Yes.
for all of us.
Great.
Okay, any other questions on contracts or agreements?
I'd just say I'm very happy to see that we've got a new playground coming in at Rapid Run. It is a quality investment. We've seen just new life breathed into the Burnett Woods playground. Community is gathering there. It is just, it's so well done. Same with Mount Echo, and I'm, again, very delighted to see this at Rapid Run. So thank you for that.
All right, so how about a motion to approve these contracts and agreements in mass?
Moved.
Second.
Second,
All right, Mary?
President Linder,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Moving on, Craig is going to inform us of in-kind contributions.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. The board approval is needed to retain in-kind contributions for the first quarter of 2021. The staff requests the board approve the acceptance of in-kind contributions in the amount of $2,893.63.
All right, thank you, Craig. Any questions for Craig? All right, hearing none, can we have a motion to accept this in-kind contribution?
So moved,
Second?
Second.
All right, Mary?
President Linder,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, next up, I would say some of the critical lifeblood of the success of the parks is our volunteer efforts. And Crystal Johnson Roberts is our volunteer coordinator, and she is going to share some thoughts, experiences, or whatever. We'll just have to stay tuned to see what she's going to share with us. Thank you, Crystal.
President Lindner, before we get started, I'd love to ask Rocky to say a couple words before Crystal dives into all of this goodness.
Yes, thank you very much, and good morning again. I am very excited about this morning. It's wonderful timing. As you may or may not know, April is Volunteer Month. And so all month long, we've been taking extra steps to recognize and thank our volunteers. You might have seen some of it on our social media feed. You're absolutely right. Soon to be former President Linder. We absolutely cannot do what we do as a staff or as an organization without the amazing efforts that volunteers put in. You may interface with this by seeing numbers presented in an annual report or hearing about an event or something that we're recruiting for. So we are really grateful for the opportunity today to put a little bit more meat on that bone for you and dive into what we do. And to make all this even more special, we're very lucky to have Crystal Johnson Roberts with us. She is a long-time Parks employee. One of the recent changes we made was to change this role from part-time to full-time. So we're thrilled to have her in a full-time capacity. I often receive feedbacks from people who've interacted with Crystal that her energy and passion for parks and for volunteering are infectious. That is absolutely true. She never wants to turn down a request ever for somebody wanting to help us, even sometimes when she probably should. So we're thrilled to have her here. You're going to hear from her in just a second. And so we're going to talk about the sort of the what we do. And then we're also going to talk about some of the improvements that we're making. One of the first sort of substantial conversations about the work of the day that I ever remember having with Kara is when Kara came down to my office and sat down. She was the brand new deputy director, and she had an idea that she thought we needed to centralize our volunteer functions because it was too dispersed and not being managed as efficiently as it could. And by the way, she thought it should be moved to my division. And so we talked about that. And I'm glad to say that we have since centralized this function under the Communications, Engagement, and Volunteers division. And it's been fantastic. There's been a lot of benefits from that. So we also Crystal's going to talk to you about some of the improvements and challenges and things in the pipeline that we're going to continue to improve. So with that introduction, Crystal, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocky. I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk about the volunteer program. I'm going to share a presentation. Share my screen. Oh, shoot. Can everybody see the, I'm sorry. Okay. So what does the volunteer program do?
Well, we can't see the PowerPoint.
Oh, you can't? I'm sorry.
Crystal, if you need me, I can pull it up on my end.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you do that?
Yeah, just let me know when you want me to switch slides as you go through it.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
Sorry. Okay, we can go on to the first slide. What does the volunteer program do? The Cincinnati Parks Volunteer Program harnesses the incredible, immeasurable enthusiasm and passion of the community, corporate partners, local advocacy organizations, and the different cultural institutions that we work with to support and enhance the important work of our staff. I would say the highest priority of the volunteer program is to bring all of that passion in an impactful way to support our staff. Mary, could you switch to the next slide? So the volunteer program typically adds an average of more than $1 million in support based on a national average of dollars per hour, which is about $25 an hour. The last couple of years has obviously been impacted because of COVID. The volunteer program enables an important stewardship function that would be nearly impossible for our staff with, we all are very aware of the issues with invasive species and the trails. The program enhances events and community programming. We work hand in hand with all of our incredible members of our CPACs, the advisory councils that do such a great job of tapping into the pulse of the community and knowing what is interesting to the community, what types of events that we hold in different parks citywide. It provides people a direct way to support public lands and facilitates a connection to nature. It feeds energy and a contagious pride in the special park system. I think a lot of our volunteers are an inspiration to our staff and the way we are able to be creative and innovative in a lot of the day-to-day operations. And it facilitates a connection between our administration leadership and the community. Understanding, working with community leaders and established volunteers, it lends to an understanding of what is important to the community. Okay, Mary, do you want to switch to the next slide? How are our volunteers organized to support parks? Volunteers work in almost every aspect of the day-to-day operations of parks, from our librarian at the archives to land stewardship. Volunteers are the fabric of our operations. Next slide, please. Volunteers work, we have several different categories. One is probably the largest category, working in parks. Conservation and land stewardship, invasive plant removal, and our pesticide application program, trail maintenance and repair. We have highly skilled volunteers. We are so fortunate to have arborists that help with our pruning. We have hort helpers that do basic grounds maintenance, weeding, mulching, planting, pruning. We have a lot of individuals that work in their neighborhood, their favorite neighborhood park. And we have more organized groups like this newly organized Smale Garden group that meets Tuesdays to help the horticulture staff. And that awesome team down there, that beautiful park. And the Adopt-A-Plots at Alt, which has been going on, I think, 50 years of volunteers adding to the beauty of the park. Lots of group projects, mulching, invasive removal, plantings, in particular this time of year. We depend or rely on organizing group projects like the Mayor's Corporate Challenge, Earth Day, Arbor Day. In the fall, we do Mayor's National Public Lands Day to really make a huge, quick impact on the day-to-day maintenance. Litter pickup, we have probably close to 30 volunteers that do litter pickup in parks citywide on a regular basis. And we also coordinate events. Next slide, please. Event and program support. Crone Conservatory, one example, the butterfly show absolutely could not happen without volunteers. I think we involve about 500 volunteers for the butterfly show to uphold USDA guidelines, keeping the butterflies inside containment. The docent program, ambassadors, readers, we have program support with Explore Nature, a youth program. The CIT summer camp support usually brings in about 80 or more teen volunteers every year to support all of our day camps. And then seasonal events, the CPACs do the concert series, the family fun events. We have farmers markets. All of those things are done with the support of volunteers. The next slide, please. Leadership and administrative support, like our advisory councils, fundraising, event planning, conservation efforts. Administrative, we have data entry or data analysis. We have volunteers that help with our multimedia support and clerical tasks. And we have, Rocky mentioned in his introduction, we don't ever really like to say no. If someone has a special skill or talent that they'd like to bring to parks, I think we all our staff does an incredible job of working hard to figure out a way for volunteers to support interesting or different unique opportunities. one thing that comes to mind is a group of crafters that's been working for decades to assemble and create natural ornaments that are hung on the tree at Crone every year, and all of the volunteers that work out of the Sinton warehouse that create the gorgeous decorations of the butterfly show. And last year we had about 6 or 7 volunteers that produced handmade masks for all of our staff. Over 700 masks were made when the pandemic hit last year for staff by volunteers. So just a real array of interesting opportunities that volunteers support. Next slide, please. We have 2 different types of volunteers. Our ongoing long-term volunteers. There's a tradition of devoted volunteers who serve in our parks for decades. Going back to 1971, I think, when the volunteer program was organized and established. Obviously, probably had volunteers far before that. We have volunteers that work with our CPACs, Crone Conservatory, that have been with parks for upwards of 25 years. We have one-time or occasional volunteers for episodic events. Like we have folks that come back every year for the butterfly show. Maybe that's the only way that they serve for us. Thousands of volunteers each year serve in parks with project-based opportunities. The honeysuckle removal, the mulching by the groups, different advocacy groups, college students, high school students, and corporations. Next slide, please. So as Rocky mentioned, there's been some changes with the volunteer program. Last year, the program was centralized, and I've moved over to work under the Division of Communications, Engagement, and Volunteers. In my position, I was part-time before, and the position was made full-time. That has been being moved to the Communications Division has hugely increased the ability to be outward-facing and focus on recruitment, partnership building, engaging the community in a way that, with the support of the social media team and the marketing team, has been an incredible improvement. And it's been great to be part of a larger team. There's a new focus on collaborations and strengthening partnerships, building out solid, organized framework to plug volunteers into, being smart about scheduling and grabbing the attention of volunteers and gaining traction. And the shift to volunteers using we use a volunteer management software system that will help us. We're still in the process of launching this and encouraging volunteers to use this portal to track hours. We've already have an increase in the way we're able to understand how volunteers are working on a regular basis, what they're doing for us. We'll be able to produce better and more accurate data on quantifiable information, and also better improve the way we recognize volunteers and offer incentives. We've also been able to launch a monthly newsletter, which helps us streamline communication and maintain a more regular communication with the volunteers. Next slide, please. And how do volunteers get started? There are several ways we engage the community to recruit volunteers. One is the Better Impact site, which is our portal for our ongoing volunteers, where volunteers are able to establish an account and we build a profile for them. Well, we have a better understanding that way of what kind of trainings these volunteers have had, what their interests are, what their availability is. It's been a great way for us to connect groups of volunteers to specific staff members for more streamlined and better communication to get them out in the field and working. We wanted to, can you move to the next slide, please? Sorry. This is the Better Impact. This is our volunteer portal. Volunteers can find this on our website on the volunteer page. This lists all of the categories of volunteer opportunities and provides a structured way for us to train volunteers. We're working right now on building out some initiatives with the Department of Natural Resources. Our invasive program, we've been working, Drew, our conservation tech, is working with community volunteers to launch Crystal Courtney, to launch a training program for volunteers to apply pesticides. And this will enable us to have a huge impact on conservation efforts parks wide. We're gonna do the same thing with our trail program. And we're working on building out training programs for our volunteers. I think that's it in a nutshell. If we have time, we have a video that we produced, that our social media team produced, about Peter Wimberg, who is Alt Park Advisory Council member, and he's a huge, makes a huge impact on the trails out at Alt Park.
Maybe we can save that till the end of the meeting. I'm certainly thrilled to show it. Crystal, I just wanted to thank you so much. This presentation has showed us the breadth of opportunities, but certainly I don't think did any justice to you. You are the person, the only reason I ended up down in Rocky's office my first week on the job is because you and I met and you had a list a mile long of incredible initiatives that could transform our volunteer program. This system has always had incredible volunteers, but through your creativity, through the efforts, through Rocky's leadership and your team at large, we now have an aggressive, robust system that is going to enhance that experience and attract more volunteerism. So I just want to thank you for giving us an overview of the breadth of things that we do to engage and serve our volunteers, for all the good work, and recognize you one more time, because this program is what it is because of your vision and your commitment to the role. So thank you so much, Crystal.
I have two questions I'd like to ask.
Okay.
The first question, Crystal, how do you say thank you to these volunteers? How do we say thank you? And the second question is, who helps you?
Well, I'm a part of this incredible team. It's been, I'm gonna be honest, it's been a little bit of a tricky transition to work on a team, because for the most part, for years, the volunteer coordinator has sort of worked in conjunction with the operations staff and the managers and CPACs and community leaders, but not on a team where the volunteer program is actually considered an integral part of the planning and development of a lot of our initiatives. That's been extremely exciting for me. So I get a lot of help from the team. And one thing that we've been able to really increase is recognition and thanking and showing appreciation of our volunteers via our social media outlets. Sarah and DeAndre do an incredible job. I was excited for you guys to see the video we produced last year, actually. Peter Wimberg, we were going to present, recognize him in front of the board, the first meeting that COVID impacted. So we've been waiting for a long time for you guys to see the video of the work that he does. He talks about why it's important to him to support parks. And so working with Rocky and our team to come up with ways to show the community, showcase our volunteers, the groups. We have volunteers serving in parks every single day. So we try to post great pictures of the work that they do and share their story. It is Volunteer Appreciation Month. So we are sharing each week of this month, we're sharing a highlight of a volunteer. And this is in the newsletter we've had for just a few months now. This will be the first month that we start a monthly highlight. So a volunteer group or individual will be highlighted every month. We also are in the process of providing some apparel, hats, shirts, water bottles, small gesture for ways to support them working in our parks, but also just kind of like a thank you for what they do.
Yeah, you guys are doing a great job, and President Lindner, we haven't forgotten, and we've been talking about your call to have our volunteers compete against each other. So we're having those conversations on how we can incorporate that.
Good.
Great idea.
Having some kind of dashboard that speaks to or captures, who's been doing what where would be I think a great thing to incorporate. So
I totally agree.
Yeah. Just curious, what park has the most volunteer hours associated with it?
That's a great question. I would probably say that would be Burnett Woods or Mount Airy.
Okay. All right.
And I think that's because those parks, we're in the middle of some pilot programs where we're structuring a strong connection between a staff member like the trail tech and the conservation tech and these advocacy groups and the CPACs and these community groups like Cora and Preserve Burnett Woods, and there's Mount Airy Trail Runners supporting their work. I think hopefully we'll be able to take those large hours and that type of impact that they've been able to do and spread it parks wide.
Great. So Mount Airy and Burnett Woods, the gauntlet has been thrown down. See who can out volunteer the others. So look forward to hearing in the future, results from this awesome program. Crystal, thank you so much for
Brad, President Linder, if I may, one of the things she mentioned, the challenges we have is changing the behaviors of our volunteers to get them to use that better impact site.
Yeah, right.
And so that would allow us, because a lot of them are just long-term volunteers and they're like, I don't want to log in. I don't want to create a registration. I just want to go out there and cut honeysuckle. So that's one of the challenges we're going to have ongoing, is changing that behavior and getting them to use that software system, because that would then inform a dashboard type presentation as you're describing.
Yeah. Is there, I know for other organizations, they can use that, and I can't remember exactly how it works, but capturing all of that volunteer effort, there's a dollar value put towards that, and somehow there is, I don't know if it's associated with grants or whatever, that it helps buttress their positions for getting funding from other organizations or the state or federal, and so maybe there's a another, you know, I don't know if it's appropriate or if it plays out for, you know, our enterprise here, but I'm one that would just be cutting the honeysuckle and not sign up for the software thing. But I do that now because I know that it really helps financially the organization that I'm, you know, helping. So that might be motivation to share with folks to get them to cross that Rubicon.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just wanted to add my voice to the thank yous for this. We recognize how vitally important our volunteers are. And I think the organization change is important in terms of effectively managing that and also moving Crystal from part-time to full-time, because this is an important function. And I think it's warranted. Presentation, like so the vastness of volunteer effort, but there's so many things I had no idea about that volunteers participate in. I think it's wonderful. The other thing is, I recognize that this is Volunteer Appreciation Month. I would like for us to think about something in the future where we have a volunteer appreciation event. I think it's great that we recognize people every month and we say how much we thank them. But the truth is, there's so much we couldn't do if we didn't have volunteers. So if we could just think about, is there a day in the year that we can set aside to just celebrate that in some way? I think it's worth considering.
I love that idea.
Great idea. And it is clearly a force multiplier. I mean, this is what volunteers probably would expand our staff by over 10%, right? You know, I mean, 36,000 hours, that's the equivalent of about 18 full-time people. So that's, you know, incredibly, you know, important for us. So, you know, my suggestion would be that we have a, you know, a section of honeysuckle, 2 sections of honeysuckle, and we have the Mount Airy people, and then we have the Burnett Woods people, and see who can remove the most honeysuckle within a specified period of time. How about that?
You're onto something.
There you go.
That's a great idea.
Crystal, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And President Linder, as we go into our next presentation, Jenny would like to say a couple of words to introduce our next guest, Mr. Mark House.
Yes, so Mark House is here today. He is the regional manager for Crone Conservatory, and he and his team are very passionate employees that take all their work, you know, that is necessary to present Crone Conservatory as the wonderful place that it is. And Mark would like to share with you all the, Mark would like to share with you the exciting world of Crone Conservatory. Last year, I had an opportunity to work directly at Crone Conservatory and really see hands-on how the operation certainly moves forward and understand everyone's clear passion and desire to present Crone Conservatory to Cincinnati as a wonderful place to be. And I couldn't be more proud to allow Mark to describe what it is that goes into bringing Crone Conservatory to its unique and wonderful place to visit. Mark, if you would like to share.
Hello, and welcome. I'd like to present what we're doing with the Crone Conservatory at this time. Of course, at this moment, we are closed, but we are preparing to reopen for our butterfly show May 8th, and we're very excited about that. Whenever I talk about the Crone Conservatory, I'm kind of surprised that not everybody has been here and knows about it. So I like to always start with a little introduction. It was built in 1933, and it was named after Cincinnati Park Board Commissioner, Erwin Crone. There he is, right there. It's a living museum. The plants that we have here are some are rare, some are exotic, all are tropical or subtropical. In fact, it has a nickname. They call it a poor man's Florida. There's the collection. It creates this wonderful environment, and it's a really unique atmosphere. A lot of people really like to come in to de-stress. We have 5 horticultural displays per year. This photograph is of our spring show featuring the 900 Easter lilies we put on display for 3 weeks. But it's also a stage for horticultural and educational programs. For example, here is our bonsai show that we hold each fall. We also have orchid shows, and we're developing many more of them. I'll show you. So for operations, annual income is about $1.5 million per year. Our expenses are about $1 million. We accommodate about 275,000 visitors, majority of which take place during the butterfly show, up to 96,000. We get visitors from all 50 states and even 2 US territories. The reason we know about this is because we walk through the parking lot and look at the license plates. And when I see cars from Hawaii and Puerto Rico, US Virgin Islands, I was kind of curious because I don't think they drove here. So I eventually asked them whenever I saw somebody getting into one of those cars, and they tell me that they are with the military and they have relocated to a base like Wright-Patt Air Force Base. And the military will fly their cars for free. And that's how we see cars from all over. When we clean out the fish pond after the butterfly show, we have found coins from up to 60 different countries. So Cincinnati's truly a international city. I think thanks in part to GE and Procter & Gamble and places like that, companies like that. Our operations are very slim and efficient. We have a manager, that's me, administrative technician, customer service representative, and we have 3 horticulturists that take care of the plants and 1 cleaner. Planning, that requires a lot of effort. So I have a tendency to plan 3 years out, staffing and events. And a lot of that is because we grow our own plants. Here's an example. This is Water Nursery in Finneytown, where we are growing our own plants because we can't get marigolds in January. We have to grow our own. So the plants that you see when you come in here have largely been started by our own staff. We continually add new events and displays. For example, I've engaged a lot of the wonderful plant societies here in Cincinnati. And in addition to our bonsai and orchid shows, we've added a daffodil show, a dahlia show, hosta, daylily, rose. It continues to grow. I'm trying to get the African Violet Society here. So it's a wonderful experience for horticultural enthusiasts and people who are just curious to see wonderful plants and flowers. The botanical collection that is permanent here at the conservatory, we continue to improve. We are always working on signage. In fact, we have our own label maker now. So you will see that slowly improve as we are able to acquire the materials. We're always adding new specimens. I'd like to share some with you. This is a Nepenthes. It is a carnivorous plant. It is the largest carnivorous plant in the world. In its native habitat, it grows up to 30 feet tall, and they have found monkey skeletons inside of it. The one we have here at the conservatory is not quite that large, but it is still very interesting. Some of them actually have teeth, and they do not move. The plant does not massacate, kind of like a Venus flytrap, which is good. But the teeth are there to hold the prey inside until it can slowly digest it. I recently added a blue banana, and it's unusual to think that bananas come in different colors, but they do. And this variety comes from Java. The fruit is very sweet, has a vanilla subtlety to it. And what people like to do is freeze it and eat it. It's called the ice cream banana. It's growing very well, and we anticipate having fruit on it next year. So you may come and see the blue bananas. This is a jabuticaba. It's fun to say. It's a relatively rare plant outside of Brazil. They call it the Brazilian grape tree. The marble-sized fruits are very sweet. They're a wonderful experience. It is already fruited for us. We like to share the fruit whenever we have a good crop, and I look forward to sharing this. It is not well known outside of Brazil because the fruit has no shelf life. It begins to ferment just days after it's picked, so you can't buy it in the store. So here's an opportunity to share with the Cincinnati public, and for a lot of people who may not have the means to go to the habitat where this natively grows and experience it in person. And I'm really proud to offer that. Now, in the future, we are finding it, we are making an effort to balance the tradition and relevance. Cincinnati is very sentimental. They like the typical experiences that they have had here at the Crone Conservatory over the past 88 years. So we are driven to continue to meet the public's expectations. So during the holidays, you can count on seeing poinsettias. In the fall, you can see the mums and the asters. And in the spring, you can see the daffodils, the tulips, and the hyacinths. We will have them for you. But we are also adapting to these cultural changes that we're experiencing. And the three that are paramount are technology, financial solvency, and modern lifestyles. So when I started here in 2003, I discovered that all the plants in the conservatory are listed in this Rolodex. So we engaged a retired software engineer who volunteers here at Crone, and we developed a digital database of all the plants. And it's wonderful. It's a powerful tool, but it requires a lot of updating because plants die, they get replaced, we add new ones, and it kind of slowed us down. It became a little bit of a bottleneck. So we decided to help ourselves by using one of our strongest skills. We decided to map the entire Crone Conservatory botanical collection. And of course, the girl that works here, Allison, and the other florists are very good at this. This is her drawing that I am showing you. And I looked at this and I thought, you know, it'd be wonderful to share this with the public if we could put it on our website. So I tried a variety of options, had a lot of hurdles, but eventually connected with our very own Matt DeBona, whom I believe you spoke to last month. He's a GIS specialist, Global Information Systems technician, and he's very good at what he does. So we engaged him, and he put together this wonderful thing where he's able to take our drawings of the Crone Conservatory collection, and we address each individual symbol with a point that can be clicked upon, and we assign a URL to it. And what we're going to be able to do is put the entire collection on the website so that people around the world, everybody can access the information, look up each plant, learn about it, see pictures, videos, audio descriptions, so much more. And it's just an amazing, this is going to be a legacy project. It will be the first time a GIS project will have its own symbols that we drew. It will also be the first time a conservatory will be represented by a GIS software, because they've never been able to do it before. Conservatories are in buildings, GIS can't see in buildings, but they have recently developed a inside GIS software, and we are going to be the first to take advantage of that. They're currently tweaking it for us so that they can utilize it to map our collection database. The indoor GIS was actually created for electrical connections, plumbing, things like that. So to do what we want it to do requires some effort. And at ESRI, the GIS software engineers are tweaking it so that it's going to work. All of this will be done in-house with Matt DeBona, my florists, myself. It's really going to be impressive. It's going to take about a year, but we're going to have it on the website so everybody around the world can access our collection. Another example will be of a virtual presence will be the gift shop. You know, while we've been closed since December, I have been watching the merchandise for our gift shop, and it's just been sitting there. And I thought, well, you know, if we could put this online and we could sell it, I think we could find some alternative revenue. And fortunately, I've had a lot of good support from the financial department at Cincinnati Parks, and we're doing it. For the first 8 weeks, we grossed $20,000 in sales with online sales only. So here's an example of our virtual storefront we've put together. We're getting ready to release it. It has its own website, it has a blog, and I'm going to tell stories on there. So it's really working well. This is how we are adapting to the cultural changes. And then finally, with the social media, we're doing live broadcasts. Here's a couple examples of me doing talks. In fact, I'm getting ready to do another one. I do them almost weekly. So tomorrow I'm going to be talking about how we manage light in the Crone Conservatory. And we have some other programs. And that's what's going on in your Crone Conservatory. Thank you.
Mark, you are spectacular. We are so happy to have you. As you know, Mark has filled some incredibly big shoes of our recent retiree, Andrea. And Mark, you are exceptional. We are so lucky to have you and your passion and your creativity to take Crone into the next 100 years of its life. So thank you so much for sharing that information with us today, Mark.
Thank you.
Echo that from here, Mark. This is very impressive. And obviously it's a incredibly impressive institution, and it's got some wonderful history, and it certainly appears to be in good hands with you and your team. So thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Mark, I thought about, as you're talking about your GIS program, you know, there's the group that we're working with Cincinnati Public Schools. And that would just be an incredible tool for school teachers to use in advance or in somehow coordination with field trips to the Crone Conservatory. Using that tool would just be incredible with kids, I would think. So I tell you, I'm impressed with your visioning and what you're thinking about long-term for Crone, which is really, it is a Cincinnati icon. So we're thrilled for what you're doing. Thank you for the overview.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that wraps up our new business portion of the agenda. And we're going to head into the old business portion, of which we only have one item, and it's the director's goals. We have been, those have been shared with us previously. I don't know if there's any comments, questions that anybody would like to raise, additions or anything like that.
So I'll just say, and this was, Brad, we did include this in the updated packet that
it is, okay.
Did yesterday. And it's just been a real joy to work with you over the last several months to kind of steer a direction for my personal work over the next, or over this first 6 months of this year. So what you have in front of you is a draft. It's a potentially close to a final draft of really a summation of all of the conversations that we've had over the last couple of months. And these are personal items that I would be tasked with and accountable to you. Primarily, the goals are ending on June 30th. There are a couple that are listed that kind of look into that future. As we have kind of stated along the way, we're kind of in a really weird position where we're talking about 6-month goals and we're 4 months into that process, obviously with the intention of creating a more formalized process moving forward. But where we are today is that draft had been presented to you, and I'm happy to engage in any conversation you would have, you would like to have about proceeding forward, alterations, or any changes to those goals.
I would just, for the benefit of the other commissioners, just mention that we had discussed the potential of engaging some expertise as it relates to core values and mission, and just the power that those can have in the organization when we really bring them to life. And certainly there are very strong values within the parks, and to the extent you can really press those through the culture and enhance them, we have all the more opportunity to increase what we do, or improve and enhance what we do. And then as it relates to, of course, the strategic plan, we really had just talked about being a proactive park board, and one that certainly engages with the community and community-led initiatives. But for instance, with the dog park, maybe we set out as part of our strategic plan to place 2 dog parks over the next 3 years, or 12 new miles of hiking trails. This just really gives us the opportunity, I think, to set a course for what we as a park board would like to achieve in a midterm range. So I'm really excited about it. I do think it will require the engagement of some professional resources that can both help us bring in community input, as well as staff input, as well as commissioner input. So I'm really excited about the process.
Thanks, Molly. Any other comments regarding Kara's goals?
I just wanted to thank you, Kara, for giving us this roadmap. And you got a big plate. It's very full, but I have no doubt that it'll all get accomplished. So thank you for that.
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Vice President.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. The question I had related to the development coach, the executive coach. It says 6 months. Any progress on identifying someone so we can get on with that?
Yes, well into that process. So as a result of the conversations that we've had, I had engaged in conversations with a couple of individuals who had the opportunity or can provide this opportunity to me. And Commissioner North was very gracious in kind of setting me on a path. But we have identified a woman named Lisa Gick, who is, I think is going to be a transformative coach for me. And we do have a proposal on hand for her, and that's something that I can engage with her and would seek to initiate fairly immediately following this conversation, if that continues to be the wish of the board.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, no other questions or comments. I would clearly agree with Susie's comment about a full plate, but also full confidence in your ability and enthusiasm to attack and digest all of these goals over the next few months. So
I appreciate that. Everything on the list is requires the collaboration of all the individuals who are on this call with me as well, our staff. And so I know I have their support and all of their goals feed into these. So thank you for your confidence, and we will produce for you.
okay, can we have a motion to accept these goals for our director and as she said, staff, tangentially to
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
Mary.
President Linder,
Yes.
Vice President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas,
Yes.
Commissioner North.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you, everybody. Now we are on to the staff comments. Rocky, is that you that's going to share with us?
It is. So there's a lot going on, as you've already heard. And it strikes me that we're at a much different point than we were a year ago. A year ago, we were scrambling to shut down programs, cancel things, figure out how we were going to work with less staff, et cetera, because of the pandemic. And this period is really the opposite of that. We are energized to be reopening all of these things that have been closed down. So for example, per the health guidance from the state of Ohio, we've not been able to take picnic shelter reservations for the last year due to those guidances. We have been able to take garden wedding area reservations because there was an exemption for weddings. But a couple of weeks ago, the governor issued revised orders and we consulted with the city and city law. And we're glad to say that we'll be able to begin taking reservations again. Our system is going to open up tomorrow and begin accepting reservations starting on April 30th. So we are very excited about that. That's something we just received just scores of calls on from people wanting to know, when can I plan my picnic, my birthday party, etc. So we're very happy that that is going to be reopened. There are some additional safety measures that'll have to be taken, like the masks are still mandated. And so we're working on all that. We're working closely with operations with Jenny and her section to make that happen. So that'll open up tomorrow. As Mark just mentioned with much more style than I, we're getting ready to reopen Crone Conservatory May 8th. The schedule's been changed where it's going to run May 8th through September 6th. That's different than the schedule that the show usually runs in, but the hope is with it being, with there being some pent up demand, that's always by far our most popular show. We can really push this hard to recover some of the lost revenue that we've had. And then on top of it, it's the 25th anniversary of the Butterfly Show. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. Then right around the corner, we've got Arbor Day and Earth Day coming up. Earth Day is the 22nd of this month. Arbor Day is the 30th. So that's always a big time for us. And we're going to be really sort of pushing that, a lot of initiatives for there. Kicking us off on the 22nd, which is a week from today, with our friends at the Parks Foundation and the Life Donor Network. We're going to be, Life Center is helping us donating trees and volunteers to create the Path of Life at Mount Echo Park, which is going to be 40 trees are going to be planted in honor and recognition of organ donors. It's a fantastic project. We're thrilled to have their partnership as well as the foundation. I've sent you all an invite, but on the morning of the 22nd, the volunteers are going to be out there planting the trees, and there's going to be a brief kind of recognition program to send them off and thank them for their efforts. That's on the 22nd. Also, on Arbor Day, On the 30th, the natural resources section, Crystal Courtney and her crew are organizing a tree planting at Eden Park, where I think 20 or so trees are going to be planted in honor of actually on Arbor Day at the Vietnam Memorial. And that's going to be kind of our official planting recognition, where we're going to be highlighting that and encouraging other people to do their part to plant a tree. There's also a deep history with Eden Park actually and Arbor Day. So it really makes sense to do it there. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to really be pushing it on social media and all of our channels, you know, to get people's attention in terms of planting trees, protecting the natural environment. And on top of it, sort of the cherry on top, is this is our 40th year of receiving the Tree City USA designation as a city. And so they project that we've planted 65,000 trees in the last 40 years since this original designation. So that's going to be a nice way to sort of a nice bow to wrap all of that up in. Also on Earth Day, we have announced CPAC Live. This is going to be an update to all of our CPACs. Haven't been able to do our normal meetings, you know, with the pandemic, et cetera. So this is going to be a virtual version with everything heating up, with the season getting kicked off. Fortunately, knock on wood, the sort of the reopening continues with coming out of the pandemic. We're going to be providing updates to our CPAC volunteers on our organizational and key staffing changes, which you all are familiar with. A lot of the changes in operations and natural resources, how that's working. The Parks Foundation's grant program, as well as an update, you know, some of the volunteer efforts that we've been doing. So we're really excited about this. We think it's going to be a great format that's going to allow even more people to participate than have in the past. And as an added bonus, it also will create a recorded version so that anyone who missed it can go back and watch it after the fact. So we're excited about this. We're going to be broadcasting live from the administration building with updates from all the key staff. So that's 4:30 on the 22nd. Then also on the 30th, kicks off the City Nature Challenge. So this is on Arbor Day. We are excited to partner with Great Parks of Hamilton County to represent Cincinnati in the City Nature Challenge. This is a national effort that pits cities to compete against one another to inventory and identify the biodiversity of plants and animals in your city. And so it's very easy. You download an app. The first 5 days, you take pictures of all the different species. The second 5 days, you identify all the species. And then whichever city has the most activity is the winner. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And so that kicks off on Arbor Day. And then for the following 10 days, we're going to really be pushing that campaign. And there's information on our website and all this stuff. It's the iNaturalist app is the app that people would need. And then finally, recognitions. You know, as you know, there's also been a lot of pent up demand for all these projects that have been completed. We are now, again, with things opening up, along with the guidance on allowing our shelters to open, we're also allowed to, I can see Jenny shaking her head, start taking permits and reservations for events in the parks. So all of this is opening up, and we're working with those different groups to get dates set. In your packet, there's a full list of all the dedications that are being planned. I think it came with what Mary sent yesterday. There's a few you've already been invited to. We've got a few with dates set, like the Cow Plush Pavilion on June 5th. The Marion Spencer statue is going to be June 27th. You'll be getting formal invitations to all these. I'm not going to go through each of them here unless you'd like me to, but that information is in your packet, so be prepared. You'll be receiving a lot of invitations, particularly, you know, between I guess sort of May through July. There'll be a lot of those. So with that, I will conclude. And we talked about the video earlier. I think what I'd like to do is just send you the link and you can watch the video in terms of our volunteer recognitions. at your own convenience.
Thank you, Rocky. Any questions for Rocky?
Rocky, I'm surprised you didn't highlight the Michael George walks in Burnett Woods for during the cicada period. Every at noon, he is doing walks, and I caught my attention. I think that's a great thing to be doing during our cicada invasion. So we'll see everybody there for lunch.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody caught it on April Fool's Day. If you saw the cicada video that Michael George did, it was okay. I'm going to include that link too. It was fantastic. But it was an April Fool's. He's a good actor, I guess, but it was an April Fool's post related to cicada.
How did you like what the newspaper offered as the cage that you could all wear during the cicadas?
Yes. Rocky, a question on reopenings for, you mentioned the picnic areas. You said April 30th. Is that when reservations can actually happen, or is that when you can start to make them?
That's thanks for providing the clarity. Tomorrow you will begin to make reservations. The earliest reservation you will be able to reserve is Friday, April 30th.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Is there any capacity limitation as it relates to these, or we're open?
Right, in terms of attendance?
Yes.
Yeah, there are not
limitations
on that.
Okay.
Like I said, there's some strict rules, and then there's some strong recommendations. So we're going to be reminding people before they have an event or before they reserve, we'd like you to do these things to keep yourself, safe and protected.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Rocky, I have a question. You had said that over the last 40 years, we have planted 65,000 trees, if I remember. So that's 1,625 trees per year. And would that take into consideration our relief program, or is this just trees that were planted directly into either city right of way that we control, or park specific property?
That would include both. That's the total amount.
Okay.
I can try and get a breakout from them with a little bit more detail. Obviously, that's an estimate.
Sure. Well, I would just hope that we're on track to at least double that over the next 40 years, or triple it or quadruple it or whatever. So it's a great start, but that's all it is. It's a start, and we can for sure, eclipse that, I would hope.
Yeah, I mean, relief alone last year was around 850, and we're looking to double that this year.
There you go.
We've got a lot of momentum.
Rocky, I believe that number only reflects the street trees that we planted through the program since the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yep. Thanks for the clarification. I asked the general question, so thank you.
Any other questions for Rocky? All right, Rocky, thank you. Appreciate it. A busy season coming up. All exciting stuff. Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioners.
Okay, I have a couple of things I'd like to talk about. I was at Owl's Nest Park last evening watching my grandson play baseball. And two questions about Owl's Nest. That seemingly beautiful brick building is due to be torn down, correct? Because it's no longer useful?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, that's number. And what is the timing on that? Again, I can't remember. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, that's coming down this season, working with the building department, and I think that they've got a bid, and that would be coming down soon.
Okay.
I can get you an exact date.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is there's no trash can there that could be used near the baseball field. And I was wondering why that was so. And in walking through that park, I picked up a piece of glass and some trash. And I really wasn't terribly pleased with the way it looked. I was a little embarrassed. And I happened to have on my commissioner's jacket. So I was very embarrassed.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you had that experience, Susie. That is becoming the everyday experience for us, is to look for these opportunities of what makes sense and what doesn't. Why isn't there a trash can there? Jenny has actually initiated a program called our Friday Why Days, and staff looks at the parks through the lens of the user and asks questions about why. Why is there no trash can here? So absolutely, very specifically, I'm sure Jenny said we could take a look at the current condition and our operational practices regarding Owl's Nest Park. But these are questions and conversations that we're having system-wide. Jenny is actively engaging in those conversations with her team because there are a lot of situations like that, Susie, where there's just an implementation of amenities that doesn't make sense, or a lack of amenities that doesn't make sense. We are actively engaging in that. So thank you for bringing that specific one to our attention. And I think through the process that Jenny's leading, we're going to uncover a lot more items like that we can attend to, make the user experience better.
Okay, thank you. And my next point is we've got to talk about the boat dock. Sure. And the status of the boat dock. I mean, I'm very distressed, and the lack of progress there, especially with that company hanging out there, has given us this tremendous offer of building this boat dock.
So as of the last 48 hours, there has been a definitive decision made by city administration that we will be proceeding with an RFP directly. So basically it will be an open invitation for anyone to submit a bid on constructing and operating a boat dock. Jenny just got that information. It was either yesterday or the day before. And unfortunately, Susie, that's where we are as we have progressed through this situation, going from the end of the year when you guys approved proceeding forward to where we are today. There's been a steady stream of back and forths. This kind of goes to a conversation that we had earlier about just really strengthening these relationships that we have with some of the city departments that are gatekeepers for us, that we have to interact with and get through in order to advance our projects. So where we are at in that current process is that I would imagine, I don't know, Jenny, do you have any idea on the timeline on when the RFP will be issued, or if it already has?
So we have been instructed, yes, that it will go straight to an RFP, and we are now working with DEI to set those inclusion goals, and procurement certainly understands the need to get this out quickly at this point. So after we receive those goals, then they are ready to really release the RFP that has been designed. Timeline, I would say those goals could be set within the next week, if not two. I don't think there should be too much of a delay on that, since it's been in front of them a little bit. And then hopefully I would expect that RFP to be released, within 2 to 3 weeks from now. So mid-May, maybe, or beginning of May.
Do we have a timeline established on that RFP already of when it will close?
I believe we were originally the RFQ was going to be out for a month. So to give everyone an opportunity to share their concepts. So the RFP, I would suggest or recommend that it at least is put out for a month time period in order for everyone to create their proposals, unless you feel that it needs to be a shorter or longer period.
I think my only input would be shorter, whatever shortest timetable you think is necessary to give people adequate time to prepare I don't know how long you usually hold them open, but I know we have been given the authority by the purchasing department or the city to establish a short timeline. So whatever you think best, but I think from our perspective, I think you're hearing the shorter the better.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah. I know in a minimal time period, they usually, require for it to be out at least 2 weeks. But, depending on if someone's coming to this completely fresh, that is why I made the recommendation that it would be a month in order to get their concepts presented and their budgets together in order to display a full and comprehensive proposal. But I do hear what you're saying, that you would like to go shorter. So maybe we can settle on a 3-week period.
Well, I personally think, we ought to get it done right. Get the best proposal in, and, a week isn't going to make a heck of a big difference one way or the other.
And Jenny, you have a lot of expertise in the purchasing department, so I would certainly go on their guidance and how expansive this RFP is, and if that 30 days is appropriate. And then just kind of to echo what Commissioner Getz said, I think that the hope was just it would be done as soon as appropriately possible.
Okay, I certainly will check with them to see what their recommendation is and move forward from there.
Other comments from commissioners? I have been, or at least, somebody shared with me during the All Park Cherry Blossom Festival or extravaganza, whatever you want to call it, a lot of people hanging their hammocks from the trees. And hopefully nothing crashed and burnt or broke or anything like that, but you just, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but that was news to me that, obviously there could be some stress put on the trees, and that's the last thing we want to happen.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a conversation with that. That's interesting. That is one topic of conversation I have not yet had with the team, but we will definitely. Or do we have a role, Becky, that I'm not aware of?
The team has been having the conversations.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, with the surge, and when the weather breaks, there's this surge in attendance all around. We just struggle with keeping up with a lot of these things, with litter, with a lot of things that are happening, particularly on weekends when there's nice weather. And one of the relatively new phenomenon we're having in the parks is people bringing their own hammocks and setting them up themselves. This is something that is against the park board rules. It does present potential damage to the trees that are being used, to the bark, and Crystal could probably talk about this in a lot more informed way than I. And so we received complaints about it, and we've been struggling to try and get the message out and let people know, that in a positive way, why this is harmful, so that they will hopefully discourage it. It is an ongoing conversation that we continue to have, and if necessary, we may look at the rules and perhaps have a recommendation about what something that might be changed, but we'd like to work it out a little bit further.
Or you could do what Captain Swingley does and pull a flatbed around and grab their hammock and throw it on the flatbed. And at least threaten them that they're going to lose their hammock if they continue to do it.
Sorry.
Go
ahead, Susie.
Well, I was going to say, so long as our signage when you enter a park tells you that it's not allowed.
Yes.
If that's not telling people it's not allowed, it's kind of hard to enforce.
Yeah, I think hammocks are increasingly popular generally because they make these little ones that you can pack in a bag. And as we have more young people that are living around the city, we're just going to see more of this. And I mean, really, it sounds delightful to me. And policing, people trying to enjoy green space because they're, cooped up in an apartment we're trying to get people into these parks to enjoy them. And to the extent we can avoid harm to our trees, then I don't know. We've got some bigger problems, I'd say. But
yes,
appreciative of all the work and the that gone into this so far. But I would be personally interested in engaging further in this discussion with the team.
Hey, I do have one other item, which is, Carrie, you and I spoke about this yesterday, but I'll just put this out here. I don't know when council is anticipated to approve the stimulus funding, but obviously we're a significant recipient of that, presumably. And I think we'd like to just start tracking, of course, very closely the work that needs to be done to execute against those dollars awarded through this. So we can deliver to the administration that has so generously allocated funding here.
Yep, I certainly appreciate that, Commissioner North. We've just provided brief blurbs, just kind of acknowledging to you that we know where we are at in the course of any one of these projects, but that'll be the next step, will be to plot the details of those programs out a little bit further. And we will certainly get to work on that immediately.
Perhaps, Kara, along that line, if we could, and you've provided this data to us before, but if we could get on a one-sheet piece of paper, those things at the top that did show up on the proposed distribution of those funds, but then if you could put below there on the same sheet as well, I know that we provided some things such as other requested items like paving of our roads and stuff like that. I think we provide, can you show us the other things that we had provided to the city as far as opportunities that we saw for spending the money, so that as we're talking with council people, we can reinforce what's already been identified for them, and then also sort of advocate for some of the additional things that might be available to us for things like paving our roads and that sort of thing.
Sure. So let me put that in my own words and make sure I capture everything you're saying. So just a one-pager that highlights the items that made it onto the mayor's proposal. In addition to that, any items that we had originally proposed that may have not made it onto the mayor's proposal, and then probably additional exceptions that we included in our capital budget.
No, I wouldn't go that far with the capital budget. I would just stick to, you were absolutely correct on what I said. And I think you might want to forward that to the foundation as well, because I know board members of the foundation and the women's committee of the foundation have already started an effort to contact council people, and we'll be glad to do the same thing, but appreciate their work to date on that.
Yep, great. We'll have that out by the end of the day.
All right, any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I think our time has come. So next regularly scheduled meeting is May 20th. And hopefully we'll be able to do that live and in person, but we'll wait to hear what the orders are. So with that, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. All in favor, say goodbye.
So long.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye.